Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest today from Rhode Island. We have Susan Lataille, and she is an author of Shining a Light on Grief. And she knows what she's talking about. Wait till you hear what she's been through. She is also a certified master grief coach and a certified integrative health coach. That's a lot of mouthful. Welcome.
Thank you.
She had a nice day to drive over. We've got to begin from the beginning. You have a son that was very close in age to my son. What happened? What was the progress of what happened to him?
Oh, well, my son, his father lived in Michigan, so he spent a lot of time going back and forth. And the last time that his father sent him home to me, he was about 26, and they couldn't deal with him anymore. They just didn't know what to do with him. He was argumentative. They felt, what do we do?
This sounds familiar.
What do we do? So let's send him home to mom, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm extremely grateful that they did. So he came home, and I took one look at it, and I'm like, okay, who is this child? What happened to Nathan?
Yeah.
Where did he go?
Yeah.
And as time went on, he was struggling with headaches. He was, his whole demeanor was different. He wasn't that lovable child that he always was. He was always very respectful. He was always just always thinking about other people. And when he came home, it's like everything turned into an argument. Like he couldn't just comprehend some things. Yeah. So fast forward about 6 months after encouraging him to go to the doctors, going, look, there's something going on. We don't know what it is. Yeah. Finally, my husband and I were going on vacation, and he was going to be left to his own. I said, look, if you're not going to go and do something for yourself to find out what's going on, please do it for me. Yeah. Because I can't watch you do this anymore. So, unbeknownst to me, that night he went out. Well, we were already gone. We went to Cape Cod, and he ended up getting into a car accident.
Oh.
So I was called about 2 a.m. in the morning to tell me that my son had been in a car accident and please call the hospital, which they proceeded to tell me that they found a large mass on his brain. Because they immediately sent him to the hospital because they did not know what was wrong with him.
Did they think that it was a serious concussion mass?
No. So they immediately said, we're going to send him to Rhode Island Hospital. Mm-hmm. You can meet him there. So, I knew something was going on with him, but, that is the last thing any parent wants to hear. Yeah. So I said, okay. Put the phone down, told my husband what was going on, and called my brother because we're really close. And I'm like, Rick, can you believe this is what's going on? And he just listened, and I said, okay, gotta go. I'm still trying to absorb this, so I lay down, and all of a sudden I jump up, and I'm like, oh my God, we gotta go. Yeah. We have to go. So we did. Longest ride home from the Cape ever, and went directly to Rhode Island Hospital, where he was just having seizure after seizure after seizure after seizure, and they had him so drugged up that he wasn't conscious. Yeah. They were doing different tests, took him in for an MRI to determine, exactly what the mass was. And about an hour later, his surgeon was standing in front of me saying, we're taking him into emergency surgery. Yeah. I'm pulling together a team now because it's Saturday. Yeah. No one's there. Yeah. And then he gave me a hug, and he said, I will treat him like my own. Right. Which I thought, from a surgeon, it was very touching, and I was very grateful that he was compassionate. So he ended up having that surgery, came through with flying colors, was released from the hospital a few days later. They weren't able to get the whole tumor some of it had,
But was it the part they take out and analyze? Was it cancer?
It was a stage 3 at that point.
Okay.
So he did the thing of going through chemo, going through radiation, and all of that. Only 2 years later, it was back, almost as big, but not quite.
Yeah.
Where they had to operate again, and at that point, it was now a stage 4, and 3.5 months later, he was gone.
For it to happen, for them to find it after an extremely serious accident, and they don't think it had anything to do with that. So this was probably growing years before you knew.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree.
Maybe that's why his behavior was...
Yes, that's what I ended up contributing it to, that we don't know how long it had been there,
Yeah.
how long it had been growing, and it was pushing so much on his brain, is that if he hadn't gotten into that minor accident,
Yes.
that he probably just would have died instantly if it went much further.
Did he know that he was going downhill after they found it?
I think he knew.
You know?
Yeah.
He was only 22, right?
Well, he was 26 when he was diagnosed.
26.
So.
Oh my God. We are talking with Susan Lataille, and she is the author of Shining a Light on Grief. She is also a certified master grief coach and a certified integrative health coach. At what point, Susan, did you realize I've got to reach out and help others?
I think I knew it almost immediately. I'm one of those people that will take a tragedy and turn it into something positive.
You're the one that takes a lemon and makes lemonade. And we need people like her.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel that there's so many people out there that are grieving, and it's such a taboo subject. And that's why the book is called Shining a Light on Grief, because I want to bring it out in the open.
Yeah.
I want people to talk about it like they talk about, anything else out there.
Yeah.
Because it's a part of life. If we live long enough, we'll all go through it. So why not understand it a little bit better and be compassionate and be able to hold space for people to grieve in their own way, because we're all very different, so we all grieve differently.
Yeah, not to feel alone in it.
Right, but you're not alone, and
Yeah.
that's another, the book has, 10 amazing authors in there that all really shared their stories from the heart, with
Yes.
vulnerability and just...
This is an amazing book. You've done it. These are all different people who have shared their experiences. And by the way, shout out to Steve Porter,
Yeah.
who recommended that you contact with me, whatever. I contacted with you. Hi,
Yes.
Steve. He's a great guy.
Yes, he is.
Have you been with your book to one of the December big expos?
No, this just came out in, the end of June.
Oh, don't miss it.
Oh, I already signed up for it today.
Okay. How much is it now to rent a table there, so I can tell my authors?
It varies. So I think it ranges anywhere from $50 up to like $600.
Okay, because
So-
you know what I tell them, that they go, oh my God, 50. I said, no. Find a friend who wants to share with you. You can't just put it down the middle and 25 each, you can't beat that.
Absolutely.
That's very good. Now,
Absolutely.
Shining a Light on Grief, real women sharing real stories of love and loss. Before we go any further, Susan, how can they reach you and get your book?
Oh, they can find my book at shiningalightongrief.com. You can also find it on Amazon, where it's an ebook as well as the paperback. You can also reach me at susan@susanlataille.com. And
Do you get to many, there's a lot of grief groups out there. Have that yet in your travels? Have you given presentations and shared at those?
I have not, no.
You are needed, very needed. I
Thank
know,
you.
I went to a grief group one time. I was curious to see when it happened. And it is amazing. It's not intimidating. It's other people sitting there just kind of like, now what do we do?
Right.
People do. She is right. Susan is right. People experience it differently. When my parents died within a year of each other or so,
Right.
I didn't break down crying. To this day, I don't know why. Maybe because I celebrate inside of me what they were, and I felt they gave me their all.
Yeah.
I don't feel. I don't understand it. I don't.
I think I don't think you have to grieve to the level that some people do.
Yeah.
I think grief for you, it's just based on your beliefs,
Yeah.
that they lived a long life, they gave you everything they possibly could, and it was their time to go.
I miss them.
Of course.
And I have
Yes.
a friend with her. She's been on the show before, the psychic type of thing. Whereas at least twice I have been in the kitchen, been minding my own business, and the smell of Bochum Riff pipe tobacco. Nobody in my we don't smoke.
Right.
And I'm like, Grandpa, Dad, where did it come from? She says that's sometimes, if you want to go that way, sometimes that's the
Right.
way they come in.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
what if these are a lot of different stories? You have 11 different, and yours is the last one.
Yes.
Our love is eternal. Let's start with you. Our love is eternal. Tell us about that.
Well, I thought, I wanted, obviously, to put my story in there, too. And I had published my story in another book that was, it was all different kinds of stories. It
Sure.
wasn't only on grief. So I figured, okay, let me put it in this one, too. And I revised it a little bit for this book. Just to let people know that, there's different ways of going through grief, different tools that I use, because it's not only to share the story, but also share some of the tools that I used or some of the beliefs that I had
Right.
that may help somebody else. We all have to find our own way and find the tools that will work best for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And, maybe one thing that they'll read, they'll go, oh, yeah, you know what,
they
maybe
can
I'll do
relate to
that. Maybe I can do that. Maybe that will help me. So I think that was the reason for putting my story in there, is because it was not only to help me heal, because I just feel like it's just constantly,
Sure.
like ogres are like onions, right?
Yeah, right.
I feel we're like that too.
Sure.
There's all these emotions of grief, and we might go back and forth in between some of them, or we might remove one layer of let's say anger. It doesn't mean it's completely gone. We might have to revisit that again. So I think it's just it's a whole healing process throughout, I believe, the rest of my life.
My son, I think at the time, his grandparents, my parents died, he was maybe only 12, 13. And he was having his own emotional issues.
Yes.
And I was being strong for him, but I was also keeping an eye on my only sibling, who was hell-bent on, what do they call it, when one sibling wants to grab everything, and I had to take him to court, our parents' estate.
Oh,
So I was very much involved in that.
right.
And I don't know if that didn't give me the time. I knew they had had a great life and they'd been good parents. So I wasn't grieving. I still felt they were with me. And
Right.
maybe that's it. Some of us still feel that they're there.
Yes.
They were so strong in my life that just sitting on my shoulder, I don't know, rotting me on, Now, there's a woman, let's see, Diane Kane. I'm glad I didn't miss the dance. What was that about?
She lost her fiance in a tragic car accident when she was only 21.
Yeah.
And this is 30 years later.
And 30 years later, how did you meet these people? Did they come to you?
No, I've known all the women in this book. I have known for many years through different things that I have done, between expos, running a women's group, networking. I reached out to each one of these women individually and said, this is my mission, this is my vision, are you in?
I love this one. The Journey into the Unknown, Carlin DeSisto.
Yes.
That sounds really, really good.
Yes.
It is. It's
Yes.
the unknown.
Yes, she lost her husband, and when he passed, she needed to figure out a lot of things on her own that he used to take care of.
Exactly. My grandfather did that. He was
Yeah.
6 years older than Grandma. And he's, of course, men think they're going to go first, so he sat her down, showed her the ropes financially.
Right.
He lived 6 years beyond her.
Oh.
I mean, you never know. You just don't know.
You don't.
Now, honoring the caregiver is so important. I love that.
Yes. This is another woman who lost her husband, who was ill for 10 years. So just the emotional roller coaster that she went on, and how she really went through a grieving process before he even passed.
Definitely, because that's, I believe, how my father died.
Yeah.
He just burned himself out taking care of Mom.
Right.
And he just passed out. He was so diligent. And then she lived just about a little over a year later than he did in a nursing home.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen two parents Mom, I caught her in time. She was burning out taking care of my grandfather. She went from this beautiful woman, she was like, I rocked the boat in my family. I said, hey, look, she's done enough. Grandpa, he was in his 90s. I think he needs to be in a facility. She wasn't a nurse. I mean, he was deathly ill.
Right.
So anyway, I watched that. Then I saw my father go through it. So I've learned big time. Watch it.
Yeah.
Now, with your son, did you have hospice care with your son?
Yeah, that's the thing. No. So I only found out about a month before he passed that he was eligible for services. He could have a nurse come in, he could have a CNA that could help him bathe and all these other things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, this would have been nice to know like a few months ago when he really started to decline. I was the main caregiver, and right before he passed, my husband looked at me, he goes, how long are you going to do this? And I said, as long as I have to.
This is interesting because it wasn't until that MRI after the accident that they found this.
Yeah.
And you said his personality had changed long before the accident had been changing.
Right.
And it makes a lot of us wonder, if you have kids who are addicted to things and this type of thing, that little bit of you, after talking with Susan, it's like, is there something else we don't know?
Sometimes, which I have learned over the course of just, researching and reading different books, is that if you hit your head, it can damage different parts and it can change your personality.
Yeah.
So I think he used to hit his head all the time. Like if he were to get hurt, that's what would happen.
That is nothing would
was
get
his
it.
head. Always his head.
Always the head.
Always the head. So
We'll never know.
But you just never know.
We'll never know. Susan is a certified. It's a certified master grief coach, certified integrative health coach. Now, integrative health coach. What do you do with that?
I really don't do much with that right now. I will incorporate it a little bit into my grief coaching because it's about addressing the person holistically as a whole. So that does kind of seep in, more concentrated on the grief coaching.
Right,
though.
and don't not take care of yourself.
Right. That's one of the key things.
Yeah, I know that different customs have different ways of handling it. I know that I love the Jewish custom where they sit Shiva for 7 days.
Yes.
Now, that's a lot to have your houses open, but people are coming to just sit quietly, bring something with you.
Right.
I love that.
It's a great way to process.
Whereas a lot of people have, the thing I don't particularly like is called, after the funeral and all this, the last thing I want to do is eat. So, but they go out and have what's called a collation.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. I don't understand that. I mean, I'm like, I just want to leave remembering this and be quiet. I don't want to sit down and, hey, here comes the steak, I don't know. It just, personally, that's just me. My family didn't do that type of thing. Did you have an open casket with your son?
I did not.
Yeah, we don't do that in my family.
I did not.
Yeah.
No, he was cremated, and then I just had a celebration of life.
That's it. Funeral parlors these days are having to really, step up.
Absolutely. No, I didn't even want to have it at a funeral home or anything like that.
Where did you have?
We ended up having it at a country club.
Okay.
That we had a little service there. I have a friend who's a minister, and I allowed anybody who wanted to come up and speak.
I love that.
Yeah. So his dad was there. He did. An aunt of his spoke. I think my brother, maybe one of my sisters, and then at the whole time I'm thinking I'm not getting up there.
I bet you did.
And then I'm like, well, how can I not?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the most impactful thing that I said, and the thing that I remember saying, is that we bring our children into this world thinking that we're going to teach them everything. And it turns around and it's us that's learning.
Yeah. And if you have a kid who turns out to be good conduct disorder, all these other things, really bad stuff, antisocial, at some point you have to say, I brought you into this world, but I didn't bring you into this world for you to take me out.
Right.
Very important.
Right. There is a line there, yes.
There is definitely a boundary.
Yes.
Honestly. We're talking with Susan Lataille, and she is the author of Shining a Light on Grief. How can they get this book, Susan?
You can go to shiningalightonGrief.com, or you can also go to Amazon. It's available there as an ebook as well as a soft cover. And you can reach me at susan@susanlataille.com.
Now, will you be giving a book downstairs to the library to the dedicated local authors?
Oh, I'd love to do that, yes.
So you come over to the Upton Library, even if you're out of state. Once you're on YouTube, you're all over, the world. But we do have a dedicated local author section, and you can come and borrow this wonderful book. There were 11, 10, or was how many women?
11 with me.
11. And did they hesitate at all, or did they say, yes, I want to do this?
Most of them said yes right away. There's a few that hesitated a little bit, but didn't take them long to say, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, because sharing your story helps others, right?
Yeah.
It really.
Yes.
How long have you been? It's been 5 years since your son. What was your son's name again?
Nathan.
Nathan. 5 years since he passed. When did you start deciding I'm going to do this?
Oh, I decided I was going to do this book last September.
Okay, and then when did you get your grief counseling certificate?
Last September.
Is that a hard thing to go through? Time-wise?
No, it was all self-paced, so it was.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
not hard to do.
And I already had the other coaching certification, which I got that in like 2016, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I already knew the coaching part,
Right.
and I really knew the grief part because I've lived it.
Yeah. I would imagine other people in your family turned to you in their grief, maybe, and how to handle it. No, they
No.
didn't. You were on your own. But look how many people you're helping.
Yes.
There's people watching this program now that know about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and anybody out there who would like to have her come speak at maybe your group or whatever, is there another way they can reach you, Susan?
I think my email would be best. It's
Okay.
susan@susanlataille.com.
Susan@susanlataille.com. That's L-A-T. Let me make this sure. Lataille. Susan@susanlataille.com.
Yes.
.com. And anybody suffering a form of grief or whatever is welcome to speak with you, all right?
Absolutely.
Do you have another book in the coming up?
I do.
I thought maybe.
I actually have a book too coming up because everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
And what I learned is it's not only about putting the book out to help others who are reading the book, it's extremely healing for those writing the stories.
Yes.
So it was a very amazing journey that the 11 of us went through over the 6 months.
That's
6
It's
months.
unfortunate you had that many. Do you think you'll have as many next time or more?
Yes. I figured between 10 to 12.
So it would be Shining a Light on Grief #2?
Book 2.
When will that coming out?
According to my timeline, at the end of March.
Do you, other than your job as a as a
Coach.
grief counselor, do you do anything else?
No.
That's a lot right there. Your days are probably pretty busy, I would
Yes.
think.
Yes.
Also writing the next
in the book. In the
Writing
book.
the next one. Do you have nephews and nieces who have read your book?
I don't know if they've read it or not. They're young. All my nieces and nephews are young.
They're young.
Yeah.
They're young.
My sisters have read it.
Should what?
My sisters have read it.
Yes, definitely. That's a good thing to do. Your parents?
They haven't. One of my aunts has read it.
Yeah. Now, how did your parents take it when Nathan died?
Well, they're old school.
Yeah.
Old school, growing up, not talking about it. I lost my grandmother when I was about 12 or 13.
Yeah, me too. My great grandma.
And it was devastating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through the motions, you do everything, and then they never spoke about her.
Mm.
They weren't there to, there was 4 of us at the time, even though my youngest sister was very young. That it's like I had no idea what to do with grief.
Mm.
I didn't know. I thought, I really thought that you just ignore it. You just don't pay any attention to it. So that was one of the reasons too, is that I decided to do this book because people just we're not taught how to grieve.
Right. My parents seemed, I don't want to say stoic, because I think they grieved in a quiet way. We didn't stop talking about it. We would talk about that was there. I saw one day, it's interesting. I asked my mother, do you ever cry or whatever about your grandma being, her mother being, and she said when she's all alone in the house, I think she used to go downstairs and scream and cry.
Yeah.
But not around me or anything like that.
Right.
And I took that, okay, if that's what you got to do, that's cool.
Right. Right, because they're the example.
Yeah.
You think that they know what they're doing. They're older than you.
Yeah.
They're taking care of you. So you follow their example. And if they don't cry, if they don't talk about it, then you do the same.
Do you ever run into some parents who have other children in the family and they have to explain to them, if it's an open casket, what it's going to be like when they go up to the casket and what they're going to see? A lot of children can't handle that.
No, I have not been involved in any of that.
Yeah.
So usually when I'm meeting people, it's well after the
well
fact.
after it. I know there was only one open casket in my family and I was a little girl. My father and mother handled it beautifully. Dad says, you know what? Your Aunt Edie, just going to look like she's asleep. They were more worried about me.
Right.
They didn't show, I walked up and there was nothing to it. Or
Right.
how he handled it, looks like she's asleep.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Great way.
Yeah, and since then I've been able to look at numerous people, who are in that. I'm like you, in our family we don't do that. Nice to have a picture of the way you remember them. I don't want to see them.
Right.
No.
Right, I agree.
No, not a good
I
thing.
agree.
Well, before we close, again, we've been talking with Susan Lataille. She's the author of Shining a Light on Grief, Real Women Sharing Real Stories of Love and Loss. And Susan lost her own son to a brain tumor. And they didn't see that coming. And that had to be one H of an experience, boy. But you could see as the time went by, something was different in his personality. Didn't any of the doctors say before that, let's take an MRI or anything like that?
Well, he wouldn't go to a doctor.
He wouldn't?
No.
When he was a kid?
No. As a kid,
Yeah.
No, I mean, he had physicals. He was
Sure.
a wrestler.
Once he turned over 18, okay,
But
Mom,
once
I'm
he
not
turned over 18, and at that point, when we were trying to figure out what was wrong with him,
Yeah.
he just wouldn't go. He didn't want to know. He said one day,
He didn't want to know.
"I don't want to know."
You know what? I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can't.
He
I'm
was
the
scared.
exact opposite. I gotta know.
He
But
was scared.
He was scared.
He was scared.
He was scared. But he had you, and his father would come in from Michigan to see him, right?
Yeah, and he'd go back to Michigan too when he could, in
Susan.
between treatment.
One more time before we close. How can they
Okay.
get a hold of your book?
ShiningAlightOnGrief.com or on Amazon ebook or paperback, and you can reach me at Susan@SusanLataille.com.
And also stop by the Upton Library. There'll be a copy downstairs waiting for you. Susan, we want to have you back on with the next book. Okay?
Awesome.
All
Yes,
right, we'll
love
have
to.
That'll be great. We're going to keep this type of thing coming because you're out in the open and it's not a shame to talk about grief.
I'm shining a light on it.
You are. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.